Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
The U.S. president wants to tax money sent out of the U.S. by non-citizens.
Instead of taxing our citizens to enrich foreign nations, we should be tariffing and taxing foreign nations to enrich our citizens. Does that make sense, right?
But with many Africans sending remittance back to families in countries such as Nigeria, could this policy force money transfers underground?
Global remittance or global payments is really a need, not a want. The global worker is very resilient. And so as we're going through this process, what we find is that workers are moving around to make sure that they work in the best places to send money back home.
On today's podcast, we're looking at the impact this tax could have on people relying on this income and the knock-on impact it could have on Africans choosing to work or study in America. I'm Jennifer Zabasajja, and this is the Next Africa podcast, bringing you one story each week from the continent, driving the future of global growth with the context only Bloomberg can provide. In a moment, we'll hear from our Nigeria Bureau Chief, Anthony Osae Brown. But first, let's speak with Dr Lydiah Kemunto Bosire. She's the founder of 8B Education Investments, and she's based in New York. So, Lydiah, thanks so much for joining us. Your focus is on the higher education sector, and you work with a number of people who come from Africa to study in the United States. How big of a deal are remittances in this sector? How much, if you can quantify for us, how much are people actually sending back home?
Remittances are the current story, in large part because we've seen a slashing of aid funding across the continent, initially from USAID as well as from other donors. And so the discussion becomes, where are the other sources of funding? And it turns out that remittances have been significantly larger than official development assistance for some time, depending on which data you look at, and these numbers do vary depending on if, North Africa is being included in that story. The remittances, the most recent data, remittances are about $90 billion a year going to the African continent, compared to something between $36 billion to $42 billion of official development assistance. For my constituency in particular, already within my student population, we finance African students in global universities, and they already are sending money home from their campus work and other engagements. Our recent impact survey shows that on average, they're sending about $195 a month, our students, and 77% of them already send remittances home. What happens is that remittances are an outflow from what diasporans, the students who've moved abroad, send home. And when they become workers, they send home even more. So this is the trend that we contribute to and that we see.
And Lydiah, considering what you were mentioning there, what we've seen in 2025, and again, some of the students in the constituency that you deal with on a day-to-day basis in your work, what is the concern about whether or not this new levy on remittances passes, especially for some of these students who aren't even making a lot of money yet, aren't even working full-time? What's the concern?
The big concern is that this affects how much can be sent home, because remittances are really, currently they finance consumption, right? It is the cousin who needs school fees that these resources go to. And by taxing remittances, particularly from non-citizens, which seems to be where the focus will go, it will make those flows lower than have been. My sense is it will not discourage them. It will just take them underground and enable the flows to happen in ways that are harder to track and therefore perhaps harder to drive into a more structured vehicle for organized development. Because in fact, that is the big question, which is, given the scale of remittances, what are the avenues by which those resources can be channeled into programs that advance development separately from or in addition to supporting consumption across families.
And we know that a number of governments have actually been trying to do away with a lot of the so-called black markets or underground networks, as you allude to there. Lydia, what's the link here to higher education and potentially some of the trends that we've been seeing as it pertains to African students and higher education in the U.S.?
So there's a number of headwinds facing higher education in the U.S. As you know, the current administration has put a pause in new visa appointments for students. And this is the season where over half of students who are holding offers to U.S. universities go for their appointments. There's a lot of advocacy going on in the U.S. to get that window of visa appointments to be open again. The challenge with visa appointments not being available is that many students who hold offers in the U.S. also hold offers elsewhere. And so you're likely to see this massive talent outflow that was initially destined to the U.S. head elsewhere. What also is happening globally is an awareness of what's going on demographically, which is that Africa has the largest number of college-age students, fastest growing number of college-age students, and they're looking to take their talents to places that welcome them. So we are likely to see a decline, at least in the short term, of the numbers coming to the U.S., which will be a shame because we had really started seeing African numbers rising year after year. Having said that, this is a trend that there's nothing to be done about, right? The trend of African youth looking for opportunities globally is with us. It's not going anywhere. Global universities, particularly in the OECD, are facing a demographic cliff. They need these young people. These young people are looking for opportunities there. So the movement will continue. It may be facing headwinds right now, but we do know that it will continue after the current season.
Lydia, thanks so much for joining us and for sharing those insights. It's great to have you. And let's turn to Nigeria now. Anthony Osae Brown is joining us. Anthony, so you oversee Nigeria, which is one of the largest recipients of remittance money. Can you put into context just how important these funds are for the economy and for Nigerians?
Remittances are quite significant to the Nigerian economy. We get totally somewhere around 20 to 25 billion annually from remittances. And a good chunk of this comes from the US. I'm not too sure the exact percentage, but it could be close to half of it coming from the US because of the large Nigerian diaspora community in the US. And a lot of this money going to supporting very poor families. As you know, Nigeria has almost half of its population that are very poor. So those who are able to get out of the country send money back home to their families to support them. Healthcare is a big portion of remittance expenditures, and then a good part of it goes into real estate investments. Support schooling, education, training, all forms of vocational training. A lot of families depend on their people abroad to support, especially the aged population, because there's no social security in Nigeria. So remittances just plays a key role in the economy. And another key role it plays is even in supporting currency stability.
And Anthony, if you could explain that a bit more, how remittances and potentially a decline in remittances could affect the Naira and the stability that we've seen over the past few months.
The central bank sees remittances as a key part of its foreign exchange reserves accumulation policy. So last year, it set a target of at least getting remittances through the official channels, rising to about 600 million currently to about $1 billion a month. Because a lot of remittances can also come in through unofficial sources. Nigeria has a history of an official and a parallel market, foreign exchange market. And because of official policies, most of the money, remittance money, was going through the parallel market. But now the central bank has set a direct policy of trying to attract remittances through the official market. And that basically is to use it to support currency stability. So if remittances drop through the official sources, you could see it possibly impacting on currency, Naira stability locally. So
And not something they'll want to have to deal with after the past few years of relative instability and volatility. Anthony, stick with us. When we come back, we're going to dig into more of the wider effects of some of these policies on U.S.-Africa relations. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Today, we're looking at the proposed tax on remittances and the impact it could have on countries across Africa. Anthony, we've talked a lot on this podcast about the increasingly fraught relations between the U.S. and several countries across the continent. How do you see this policy likely to change things, especially considering some of those factors you pointed there? Remittances, very important for the livelihoods for a number of Africans.
Yeah, I think this just adds to the increasingly negative perception of the U.S. They just closed down, you said, they just closed down Voice of America, which was a key part of the media network, especially in northern Nigeria. So U.S. is a big destination for Nigerian students who want to study abroad, and even for people who want to leave the country and everything. But increasingly, the latest policies from the out of the U.S. has made U.S. less attractive for a lot of people. And this just adds to it. Is the unfairness of the whole process, the fact that people who have worked and are already taxed officially will be taxed a second time. So that alone, already they're spending about 6% on an average cost to send money locally. By the time you add this 3.5% tax, you're looking at 10% of, so anybody sending $1,000 is losing about $100. That will make the US a bit less attractive for people who want to send money back home. And for students, generally, that makes it quite unattractive because most students, while they are schooling, also work and send money back home. So it just adds to the perception of US as less of an attractive destination for Nigerians, and even the country as less influential in Nigerian affairs.
Have we heard anything from officials at this point, Anthony? And do you expect we'll hear anything?
I don't think officially you will hear anything. I don't think the government will react in any way. The government will want something different, but then if that's happening, they may not officially take a stand. But I think what you will see is people, the average Nigerian, looking for alternatives on where to go to school. On Europe is likely to be a bigger destination going forward, and then possibly even Asia. Increasingly, Nigerians are looking at Asia and alternatives for schooling. Most Nigerians prefer, those who can afford it at the higher level, mostly the middle-income Nigerians, prefer their children schooling outside the country, at least when it comes to university and master's level. So with these policies from the US, we'll likely see more Nigerian students going towards Asia and possibly Europe.
Anthony, thank you so much for joining us and for your reporting. And thanks also to Dr. Lydiah Kemunto Bosire for speaking with us earlier. You can read all of our coverage of President Trump's tax bill across Bloomberg platforms now. Here's some of the other stories from the region we've been following this week. South Africa's National Assembly approved the Treasury's fiscal framework, bringing the adoption of the annual budget a step closer after months of wrangling over tax increases. And logistics giant DHL Group plans to invest about $575 million in healthcare services in Africa and the Middle East over the next 5 years to capitalize on China's push into the regions. You can find these stories on Bloomberg platforms, including in the Next Africa newsletter. We'll put a link to that in the show notes. This program was produced by Adrian Bradley and Tiwa Adebayo. Don't forget to follow and review this show wherever you usually get your podcasts. I'm Jennifer Zabasajja. Thanks as always for listening. We'll see you next time.